Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. Now, if this is the first time we've met, you might wonder, what in the world is a life and career strategist? Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I help people go from unfulfilled jobs to their dream careers. And one of the signs of a great coach is to make sure that this person is connecting you with the people who are going to help transform your life and help you to walk into your dream career, which is why I'm ecstatic today to introduce you all to our global career expert. She's going to share some things with you about if maybe your dream job is not working in the United States. Maybe you want to teach abroad. Maybe you want to teach on the continent of Africa, which she has done. Maybe you want to travel the world and visit different cultures and communities and learn about how other people interact with the world and environment around them. If that's you, you're in the right place. If you know someone who needs this information, tell them to click share and tell them to come on in so they can hear what this wonderful young lady has to share with you. I'm going to show you her beautiful face just for a moment. Then I'm going to brag on her just for a second. That's Miss Jannah Butler, and she is our global career expert, and I'm ecstatic to introduce you all to her. So she has had extensive experience in applying, interviewing, and successfully obtaining employment outside of the United States. Now, it's a different ball game when you're applying for employment outside the United States. When you're looking for a global career, there are some tips and tricks that if you want to be successful, you've got to know. And it's like similar to what we talked to our resident resume expert. It's not just posting your resume. There's some things you have to do legally. There's some things you have to do to be able to work outside the country. And if that's your dream job, it's time to learn how to do that. I want you all to stick around because I have a special announcement after we converse with her about her tips on how to have a global career. And she's going to share a little bit with you all about her background and why she's able to give you her expertise. All right, you all. So I'm going to slide this camera on over so you can see her beautiful face and hear the wisdom that she has to share.
It's me again. I look pretty. Okay, I'm Jannah Butler. I used to talk about my background. So I just recently moved back from Morocco, North Africa. I was there for about a year and a half. 2 years altogether because I went twice. I taught in two different parts of Morocco, which was two completely different experiences. And since coming back, it's been an adjustment. So I'll also discuss what you can do if you're abroad and you're coming back to the States to get ready for that too. But I can just jump right into it because I don't really know what more to share.
Okay.
I've been a teacher. Okay. So because I've been a teacher all my life, starting from high school all the way up through grad school to undergrad, and right after grad school, the first place I started with was teaching to get me abroad. And I just through a conversation with my husband, we both wanted to travel once we got married, and we needed money to do that. We needed a place to stay. We both needed income while we were there, so I started with a job. And I didn't know where I wanted to go, so I just started with the certification I knew that I would need to make me marketable no matter where I went. And for me, that was the TEFL, and that's teaching English as a foreign language. I chose to get mine online because it was convenient. I was over school. I didn't want to take any more classes, so I thought it would be an easier route. But I did it with Bridge, like the bridge that you go over, bridge.com. And it was an intense program. It wasn't just as easy as I thought. It was assignments that I had to do all the time. So my number one tip is to get trained and certified. Think about the type of certification you want and whether or not you want to get it in person or online. You can make that decision based on the place that you want to go, if you know it. For instance, if you're going to a place like in the EU, in the European Union, is that what it stands for? Right, okay. EU. If you're getting a job there, they have higher standards. In Morocco, they need teachers, so you can get your certification online, and they may not be as pressing about it, I guess. But over if the vote is in person or online. Of course, many people prefer in person, and you have to get at least 100 hours. My program gave me 60 hours of certification. But again, like I said, Morocco, they didn't really care. So that wasn't an inconvenience, but you need to think about whether or not you need to get a 100-hour certification if you want to get it with a place that gives you a job right away. Like I believe teachaway.com, Teachaway does that. But the main things to consider is whether or not you want to do it online or in person. The second part to number one is to get your resume together. Because I've been teaching for so long and I've taught so many different things, for the outsider looking in, my resume can look disjointed if I don't tailor it the right way. So my threading, the common thread throughout my resume is teaching. And I put that in my cover letter so that right off the bat, I know that my resume looks like it's all over the place. I want them to know that I'm a teacher. First off, I can teach anything. So that I have a banging cover letter. Pat on my back for that one, because I definitely have a banging cover letter. And what makes mine a banging cover letter is that I thought about, what do I want to say that will speak for me when I'm not there? How will they know what type of teaching environment I will create? What I think is important to teach as a teacher, as a language teacher, and as an early childhood teacher, because I've taught both. And I was marketing myself for both. So I have 2 separate cover letters, 2 separate resumes. I actually have resumes for every little area. That I have like a clerical resume. I have a resume specifically for gardening and farming, because I've taught that too. But I digress. I'm on a tangent. Okay, this is why I have my notes. Okay, so get your cover letter together, because when you're applying abroad, they do read your cover letter. I don't know if the norm now, they tell you not to have a cover letter more than a page in the States. It's the same, but make sure that in that cover letter you're talking about what the students will get day to day with you, how you will bring fun lessons to it if you're teaching English. Disclaimer, you don't need to know another language to teach English, but I'm jumping ahead. That's kind of tied to my last tip. But okay, so have a banging cover letter that includes all of the things, the teaching environment you create, the lessons that you can teach for students, and what your teaching philosophy is. And in that, I mean, why are you teaching? I've always thought that teaching philosophy sounds too flowery. For me, mine is really simple. I'm teaching because I think that the purpose for living is to share what we know. So everything that I know, I teach. And that is the opening line for my cover letter. And like I said, pat on the back for me, because I've gotten jobs from it. And I've also put my picture on it, which was something that I did not do in the States because I didn't know that wasn't what I needed to do. But abroad, for some positions, I needed to have a picture, so I tacked that on. Also check norms for your resume in another country, like getting your resume translated and notarized before you leave the country. Also being aware of employment norms that are different in other countries. In particular, when I got to Morocco, I didn't know that I needed to have employment verification for every job that I had listed on my resume. And that was a huge inconvenience because I didn't find it out until I got to Morocco, and that meant that I had to have a paper that was signed by my previous employer, maybe something that you would get from HR, and it had to be notarized. But that's for each thing that I had on my resume. So things that dated back far, where I didn't even have contact with those previous employers anymore to get that documentation. So I had to take some things off of my resume. But that was a lesson learned, that if I had known that I needed that beforehand when I was getting my resume together, I would have gotten employment verification for the positions that were best suited for what positions I was applying for. Okay, what else? Background checks. Get your background checks done ahead of time. And this is all just in preparing your resume. Because sometimes you may have to send things when you're applying for jobs, and have personal letters of recommendation. I didn't always have that, because the norm may not be for them to call the person because they're abroad. So you need to already have letters of recommendation already. Sometimes you need to have things notarized. So when in doubt, make copies, get original copies, and get everything notarized. And I'm going to move on to 2. Yeah. All right. So 2, where do you look for the jobs after you've gotten trained? And now your resume is amazing. You have your banking cover letter and you have your sample lesson plans. I forgot to add that. I also did a sample classroom, but that was something that developed over time. When I got a job abroad and I developed my teaching skills, all of those things started getting added onto my resume, the packet that I would make and send to schools. Because for tip 2, the first one was to get trained and certified and get your resume together. The second is to look for jobs. Now, where you will look for the job depends on where you want to go. If you know where you want to go right to that place online. Start looking for jobs, looking for schools that are in that area, and send out your resume to them. I learned from living abroad, working abroad, that it pays to be bold. And because depending on where you're going, like for instance in Morocco, many of the schools are private and many things are done in-house. Whoever put the job announcement up will likely do your interview. So whoever is answering the emails through their HR email address will often do your interview. They're really you're close to the people that are running the school, so it's okay to contact people directly and just to see if they're hiring. Because you, assuming that if you're listening, you're in the States, because you've been educated in the States, you're marketable. So there are many schools that need teachers, and they may not be on a constant hiring cycle because a lot of jobs that hire teachers from abroad have high turnover, so they're always looking for people. So you could send out your resume to certain schools. I did that, and I got a slew of responses. When I wanted to move to Rwanda and Uganda, I just looked for early childhood education centers and private schools, international schools, and I just sent it out to everybody.
So was there a specific website that you looked for that country?
For those, no. I did a Google search for schools in private schools in, like, I chose a city in Uganda or in Rwanda, and then I started going to each one of those websites, finding the email contact information, and just sending it to saying, hey, I'm a teacher from the States and looking for employment, blah, blah, blah. If you're hiring, and these aren't the words that I use, I sound better when I write, but I got responses. Either they'll tell me they're not hiring right then and tell me when they will be, or they'll say, yes, I am. Are you available for a Skype interview? Okay, so that's if you know where you're going, start there. You can also check the embassy website for that country. Sometimes there are job postings there. You can also check on sites like Teachaway, Seek Teachers, GoOverseas.com. All those have .coms. Those are particularly good for if you don't know where you're going. And even if you know where you're going, you can just click right on the country and click on the city and then find places there. But for me, when I was looking, I had no idea where I wanted to go. So Teachaway, Seek Teachers, and Go Overseas were my go-to, especially Go Overseas because I can search by country and they had nice pictures and stuff you can look at of the country. And sometimes they can put you in contact with other people who live abroad and who are working abroad. But it's really helpful to look on schools' websites. Once I was in Morocco and I was looking for another job, I just went right to the school's websites and sent them my resume and through email said I was looking for something. It was easier than I thought it would be. Now, again, this is me talking about a country that is not as developed as a place like Spain. Like in Spain, when I was applying for those jobs, it was a different process. I had to different norms, I should say. That yes, and then for China in particular, the norms were different. I had to have a video demo of a lesson, so I had to record myself reading a book, doing a little English lesson or a vocabulary lesson, and that I wasn't really prepared for, so I didn't get a call back from there. But you have to think about what type of country you're seeking employment in, and that will drastically impact the norms. If you're going to a developed country, they'll have higher standards. If you're going to a developing one, you may not need to do as much. Okay, but again, I'm getting off track. Okay, so while you are looking on these sites for jobs, you need to know what you are looking for in a job. These jobs will provide you with living accommodations, some visa assistance. Some will provide you flight assistance, relocation assistance, and expenses. Some will pay for your trips home. You don't have to have a visa if you are a U.S. citizen for a lot of places when you are applying for jobs. The job will get you the visa once you are hired. I started working, and I was working on a tourist visa. Now, it's understood that happens, so I didn't have any legal issues, anything. I was able to leave the country and come back, leave Morocco and come back several times without any issue, and I got my work permit while I was there through my employer. So you don't need that, but you do need to think about when you get there, are you going to get your own place? How are you going to get to work? Do you need a car? Do they drive sticks or do they drive automatics? Because, man, I could not drive in Morocco because everybody drives sticks, and I do not drive a stick. And I was thinking, if I did not have my husband there with me, I'd have been out of luck. I wouldn't have been able to get to work or anything, because at one point we were using the taxis, and that got on my nerves. And so you need to think, do you want to take a taxi to work every day? If you're adventurous, taxi norms are different in other countries. They had like 7 adults in one taxi, and it was only 5 dirhams, so it was cheap. But do you want to do that? Do you want to take the bus? The buses can get crazy crowded in different places. If you're doing London, you want to take the tube, that can be expensive. So you need to think about, does your job offer you travel expenses? Do they offer you transportation? One of my jobs said they would offer me transportation when I was in Tetuan, Morocco, but when I got there, he didn't offer us transportation. So we had to make our own way to work and take a cab. So you have to be thoughtful of what you need. And if you're applying for jobs to have living accommodations, is it a shared living accommodation? I had nightmares in Morocco with that. Luckily, because I lived there twice. Uh-oh. What happened?
I don't know.
It still says wow.
Hold on, you all. It looks like we have a little bit of a hiccup. Let's see what's going on.
Did you flip the camera?
No.
Yep.
There we go.
Boom. Back.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay. I forgot what I was saying.
You're talking about living accommodations,
Yes.
traveling, whether or not, employers they'll promise one thing and then you may not get that when you get there.
Yes, so be leery or weary. I'm not sure which word is appropriate, but be both of those things, because you can get screwed over, and you need to make sure that make sure that you keep a copy of the announcement so that you can have what they said they offered you and discuss that in your interview. Your interview will be done over Skype. WhatsApp is an excellent thing to have and invest in. You don't need to pay, so I guess it's not an investment. But Skype also, because many of your interviews will be done online. But you need to make sure that you know what to ask for. I had shared accommodations. But like I was saying, luckily because I lived in Morocco once before, who I was sharing the living accommodation with, we knew each other. But also because I was sharing the accommodation, so I'll tell you this better than I'm doing right now. Okay, so when I lived in Tetuan is in southern Morocco. People are nicer. I had living accommodation, and the school paid for it. It was advertised in the announcement, and they held up their bargain. They even moved us out of the first accommodation when it was horrendous. They moved us to a better one. When I got to Casablanca, it's a busy city. People are completely different in Casablanca. They advertised living arrangements, but did not say that I had to pay for it. So I assumed that it was the same way that it was before, because living arrangements are often paid for by the school. But it wasn't until I quit the job, because of the way they treated their employees, because employee norms were different in Casablanca. When I quit that one job, I had like 3 different jobs while I was there. It wasn't until I quit that one job that I found out. But he held my last pay hostage, saying that he wasn't going to pay me until I paid him for all those months' rent. And of course, I didn't pay him, but it was learning experience to keep documentation and ask questions during interviews if they say that they have living arrangements. Okay. Boom. Number 3. Let me see. Oh, I lumped number 3 with number 1. So number 3 was get documentations. Get your documents and make sure that you have everything notarized. What I did not add is I was very nervous about this, making sure that I had all the documentation that I needed before I left. So you need to make sure that anything that you do before you leave is current. If you have a background check, make sure that you got it right before you left. So just in case you get to wherever you are, say you're in a job for like 3 months and then things don't work out and you need a new job, you don't have to start all over again, because now your last background check is old.
Where would they get background checks from?
You can get it from the FBI building in downtown, but I don't know where your viewers are. You can check with your police station, your local police station. But you could also look on the embassy's website, wherever it is that you're going. Check the U.S. Embassy in that place, and see what requirements are there. Get completely comfortable with what is required of you. And don't be intimidated by the process. I was intimidated because they were talking about documents that I did not even know anything about. For instance, when I needed it's called carte séjour. A carte séjour is what you need to live in Morocco. And it is different than what you need to work in Morocco. But you don't know that distinction if, 1, you don't speak French, and 2, nobody told you. So, but luckily I was in Morocco, so you can pay somebody something and there's your paperwork. But in a place where they're more official, if you don't know everything that you need before you go, you can be inconvenienced because it's difficult to get things done from abroad. So my only advice, because I don't know where you're going, is do your research, check the embassy's website, check the U.S. Embassy in that country, and make copies of what is required of you. Think about what you're going to do once you get to that country. Are you just passing through for a couple of months? You want to stay for a year? Is there a limitation on how long you can stay without certain documentation? Will you need additional documentation? For instance, I did not need a background check when I first got there to get a visa, but I did need a background check to get a carte séjour to live there, and I planned on living there. I didn't want to just leave right away, so I needed to be prepared for what the next step of my paperwork was. So you need to think about that, and that's all I have for that. Number 4. Now, after you have gotten trained, look for your job, you've been hired, you've gathered all your documents, your job will tell you what any additional documents you need, and then you'll just wait around until it's time for you to go. In the meantime, you should be saving money. Now, saving money means way more money than you think. and saving money for norms that you're not used to. Like when you're moving into a new place here in the States, if you ask somebody, hey, do you know of anything in this neighborhood that's available? That person will say, yeah, something right up here around the corner. There's a for rent sign. And they'll say, okay, thank you. Have a good day. And you won't ever see that person again. But in Morocco, that person will say, yeah, I know this person right here. Come with me. And they will sit in that room and wait until you sign your contract. And you're like, well, give me my money because I told you that this lady was renting something. And the lady who's renting their house is like, yeah, give him his money because he hooked you up with a place. And I'm like, I did not budget for you. I didn't think about you. And everybody's like, yeah, this is the way it happens. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, nobody told me this. So I was upset. And this was every single time we needed a place. And we moved to 3 different places. Thank goodness the last place was not crazy. And it was amazing at that last place. But these are norms that we were not prepared for. And I'll address why it worked out in my next one. But the next part of number 4. So you have to save for any little emergency that you can think of and emergencies that you can't think of. And not to be paranoid, but to go with money in your pocket. Think about the exchange rate and whether or not you can have money wired to you. This is off of, I don't know if this is still on topic. Am I going off on topic? So this is about adjusting to life once you have gotten a job abroad. That with the exchange rates and getting money when you are there, in Morocco it's a closed currency. So it's difficult for, I could not send money back to the States. And that impacted me for when I came back to the States because I wanted to resettle again in the States. And because I was unable to do that, it impacted what affairs I could handle from the money that I was making abroad. So you need to think about that, whether or not you can handle what you need to handle, whether or not you can handle what you need to handle in the country too. For instance, the internet was spotty where I was, to the point where it made me go crazy, but also the phone services, the people that provided phone services was spotty too. And you can pay your bill and they'll say, oh, well, right now it's not working, so you have to just wait and you can't get things done. So I forgot to mention that you have to think about how you would get your money when you're there, if you will have your own bank account. Because you can't just get a bank account in every country. Sometimes you have to show that you live there, and sometimes you can't show that you live there until you have your visa. So you need to think about those things too. We ended up not getting a bank account right away because we had a friend who let us use theirs. But you need to think about that when you're saving money. How will you keep your money when you're there? Is it mostly cash system where you're going? Will you need a credit card when you're there, and things like that? Buy medical insurance before you leave. Think about, will your job provide you medical insurance when you're there? Where I was abroad and where other people were as well, health insurance, it may be best to get it from a certain private company. My job provided it to me, so I had Moroccan health insurance. I didn't get health insurance before I left, but I was nervous about that. So you can purchase private health insurance. There are different companies, but you have to do your own research on what's best for your what coverage you want and what you can afford. When you're thinking about these coverages, medical and coverage and things, you need to also think about what will happen to you in the event of an accident. If you're going abroad, you need to think about who will get your remains if something happens to you and you die over there. It is not fun to think about that, but people have had accidents abroad. I just had a friend who I worked with in Morocco, and he died there. And I thought, what will happen to him? His family is far away. His family is back in the States. So you have to plan for those things. You have to make sure you have your affairs in order, just like you would anywhere else. And okay, and the second part of that is to get a support system. Before you go, it's good to have a solid support system. People that will send you things that you cannot get when you're abroad. I cannot tell you how much it meant to me to get some grits. There were no grits at all. There were no sweet potatoes either, but I couldn't really send sweet potatoes. But there were no grits, and it meant amazing. It made a lot to me that I had someone who sent me some grits. So you need a support system. You need somebody that you can WhatsApp or Skype on a regular basis, because you aren't prepared for just how different it can be in another country. And the reason I say that too is when I was mentioning the different norms for finding a home, our first night that it ended up working out because we had a friend that we met there our first night there. The first night we were in Morocco, my husband went out on a mission, and we were in the alley around the corner, and he asked a man for directions, and he's like, well, I don't know, my brother knows. And that's our friend Salah now. We talk to him all the time. His mother fed us until our eyes bulged out of our heads. She took care of us when we were there. She washed our clothes when our washing machine was broken. I couldn't understand a word that she was saying, but she taught me songs in Arabic and in French, and we still talk now. Still can't understand each other, but it made a huge difference when I had her there to give her a hug when I missed my mom, because she took care of me. So don't be afraid to meet people. We also met a friend, Vaughn, of ours, who lives now in Singapore, and he's from the Congo. We met him there through a group, I think like a expat group. So join expat groups even before you leave. Expat, that's another website, expat.com. I loved that site. I found so many jobs there. It looks a little janky, but I found my first job in Morocco there. But it made a difference to meet people through those expat type of sites, because they had social events and things. So you meet people who have been there longer than you, and people who've just come, people that are weird, and people that are very interesting. But they're great resources, especially if you're nervous about getting around. And yes, and be prepared for the initial OMG, why am I here feeling. When you get into your job and the normal starts setting in, and the distance from wherever home is starts to settle in, you need to prepare yourself for that feeling. It's even with me, I've traveled a lot, but the last time being abroad in Morocco was the longest that I had gone away from home and stayed. And the norms there really drove me crazy at times, especially driving. And it made it really difficult, and I felt like I could just leave. I don't want to be here. Why am I here? But it wasn't until I leaned on my support system. I had my husband there, and started really thinking about past experiences when I had to get over that feeling, that I got over it, because I wanted to leave a lot. But at one point we did leave, and then we went back to Morocco. But it's always great to stay, because the experience is unparalleled. The amount of information you get from how humans become humans, you can't top it, and it gives you so much more insight into how you've become yourself. Saying that, it leads me to my final tip, number 5. Traveling will show you what skills you do not have, but everybody else does. Like speaking more than one language. Us here in the States, we are so limited because we only speak English. And the only time it's pushed on us to learn a language is in high school, when you have to have an elective and you have to have 2 years of some language. And I had 2 years of Spanish and still can't speak Spanish, and it's my favorite language. And I had 1 semester of sign language. That's not going to help me. I'm not teaching a classroom full of students that speak in that way. I'm teaching a classroom full of students who speak French or who speak Spanish or who speak Mandarin. And I know that I can teach English without speaking the native language, and you can. You'll learn that through training. But you as a person, you getting around in a new world, a new place with people trying your patience, you need to be able to say something back to them in their language. You need to be able to read the signs that are around you and just expand your marketability. You're already coming from the States, and our education system abroad is highly reputable. It's right next to being educated in the UK. So capitalize on that and learn another language. I still don't know another language, and it bothers me. Especially when people hear that I've traveled. Oh, you speak in other languages? No, I'm still basic, and I only speak 1 language. But the norm is that people are bilingual or trilingual. My assistant, when I was teaching at an international school in Morocco, she spoke 3 languages. And I did not, if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have learned the things that I learned or felt comfortable with languages that I had never spoken before. From our relationship, we're still friends, and I feel more comfortable learning French now. But I wish I had known it beforehand. So my final tip is to learn another language. Learn the language that will best suit you. Don't just learn a language because you just fancy the language. Learn it because it will make you marketable. And when I thought about just how many people that I was teaching English to, how many of them were learning a 3rd language, I just kept thinking about all the jobs that they could get that I could not get. And even like basic jobs, if I wanted to sit in the house and not do anything and just be over the phone interpreter, I could not do that because I don't know any other language. Or if I wanted to just, I don't know, get a job for a call center, I can't do that. And those were suggestions that I was given while living in Morocco when I needed to find another job. So in between jobs, if I had known another language, I could have worked an odd job because I had that skill. So it's necessary to learn another language, and that's all I got.
Awesome. I don't know about you all, but I have literally 2 pages worth of notes over here. What she shared with you could have been a course in and of itself. So she's giving you some wonderful tips on how to begin the journey working abroad. And I saw so much love on this side. Thank you all for all the hearts that you're sending her and all the thumbs up. And I also saw a request to join us live. I didn't want to stop her because she was giving some great tips and tricks on mastering working abroad. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put that down in the comment box, and you can see why she's our global expert. She didn't brag, but did you catch that? She said since high school she's been teaching. So we're talking about over 10 years of experience of knowing how to impart knowledge. That's why she was able to give you all such a wealth of information. She spoke specifically about her teaching experience, but she gave you a little bit of more information, and I don't know if you guys caught that, but she talked about that she's got farming skills, that she's got a resume for clerical skills. So when you're looking abroad, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into any one position. She's done these positions abroad. And she said something I also want to highlight. She talked about her resume, and she said how her resume talked about different positions that she was in. And you want to make sure you remember the 3 T's that we talk about in Proverbs 15:22, Personal Growth Coaching. The 3 T's are the right tool, that you're using transformational skills, and that you're not using task-oriented information, but you're talking about what you did to change where you were. So that's exactly what she was talking about. In that cover letter, it didn't matter if it was gaps in service between the times. She was talking about why she was phenomenal, why they needed her talent to fulfill their mission. She told you she already had a mission and value statement as to why she wanted to teach. So you need to be very, very clear. Some of us can be struggling with that. We don't quite know where we want to go. We don't quite know what our skills are. So that's why we're here to help you. She mentioned resumes for abroad. That's why we have that. That's why we have her on our team. Last week, we talked about resumes for government assistance. For resumes for government positions. If you're ready to go from an unfulfilling job, if you're like in 2020, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to drag myself out of the bed on a Monday morning. I don't want to feel like I'm cheating on my job while I'm watching a video from Jessica and her team. I want to feel like I'm walking in my purpose. It's time to make a commitment today. And the first thing you can do is to send your resume to Jessica Canty at jessicacanty.com. That's Jessica Canty at jessicacanty.com. And one of our resume experts will review it. Maybe it'll be Jannah, especially for our global partners. And we also I introduced you to our expert on government positions. So our resume experts will review your resume and give you tips. And guess what? We'll give you live feedback. So if you're looking for a global position and you want some feedback, this gorgeous girl right here will review it and do it live for you. So what are you waiting for? We literally only have 2 more slots left for this complimentary resume review. The resumes are coming in and we're reviewing them. And if you want your resume to be one of them, again, it's complimentary. It doesn't cost you anything, but it's a value that will go further in your life. So send your resume to Jessica Canty at jessicacanty.com. And if there's anything that you like today, I saw the thumbs up and the hearts. I really appreciate that love. Thanks, Swag Her Magazine. They brought this information to you. And if you also like what you heard, say, bring Jannah back. Because when she taught this, it was at least 6 classes in one. I don't know about you, but those 5 tips could have easily been a week-long work of workshops. And I think we might have to bring that for you all so that you can be ready for your success globally. All right, you all. I'm going to make sure that if, Jannah, do you have any extra tips or anything you want to share with the audience before we go?
I'm so glad you said that because I was thinking, I forgot to mention that what I did when I got back. So I had 3 jobs in Morocco. First at the first 2 times I was working at an English language center. The last job I had was at an international school, and I was teaching early childhood. I had the nursery and FS1, and that's like pre-K. So because of that job, and because I have got my undergrad and I had early childhood and undergrad, I started before I left. Maybe like a month out before I left Morocco to come back to the States, I started sending out my resume to schools and looking for a job when I got back. And I was quite nervous about it because the norms here are different and it's harder to find a job in the States than it is abroad in different fields. So I sent my resume here and did not hear back from anyone until I looked on PG County's schools website and saw that I applied for a job, and they saw that I had the experience that I had, and although I did not have my teaching certification, I could do a conditional certification. So they invited me to look at my transcript, look at my resume, and see where I was in the journey to get my certification to teach. And from that, they invited me to go to the job fair for PG County teachers, and I got a job teaching at PG County schools. So I'm teaching first grade now for PG County schools, and I don't have my teaching license, but I have a conditional certification. So but that experience abroad is what made me kill that interview.
Transferable skills.
Goodness.
Transferable skills.
I'm trying to tell you, I used to be a very poor interviewer, and because I would get nervous and talk too much, perhaps, I don't know, they wouldn't tell me everything I did wrong, but I wasn't getting jobs. But the level of confidence that I had, that the days that I was being interviewed, it translated, and it made a huge difference. So the experience made me feel confident enough to apply for a job that I did not think I was qualified for. I knew that I didn't have my certification to teach at PG County schools, but I tried it anyway because I tried it when I was abroad. I sent resumes to Rwanda and got responses back. I sent resumes to Uganda and got responses back. Every time I sent it out, I got a response back. So that experience taught me a lot about myself. teaching in an environment where nobody spoke my language, and I had to teach them how we could communicate. And it was an intimidating experience, and dealing with people that I wanted to go off on, but they would not understand me anyway. And people who were amazing, people that I never thought I could have met. So it was an unparalleled experience. I will probably go back. My husband and I both want to live back in Africa still, but now, because of that, I'm a better teacher here for the county because I've dealt with limited resources. I've dealt with not having the internet. I've dealt with having 40 kids in my class. I've dealt with those things. Yeah. So it's made me a better teacher. So just understand that everything that you do is marketable. Every experience you have has made you who you are. So even if it's not applicable to the job you're applying for, it still applies because you're applying for that job and it made you. So put it in there. And now I think that's all.
Okay. Still dropping pearls of wisdom. I had to write it down. I don't know if I mentioned this last time. She said language is not a hurdle. It's not a barrier. So if you're thinking about working globally, don't hesitate because you don't speak the language. She's giving you plenty of resources to get that done. The other thing she said is apply anyhow. Even if you don't think you meet the qualifications, apply anyhow. I shared on our last interview that a lot of times, especially women, we sell ourselves short. If there's 10 requirements for a position and we only meet 5 of them, we won't want to apply. We won't apply for them. Whereas men, if there's 10 qualifications and they only meet 3 of them, they're going to apply anyway. So we really want to make sure that you will understand that, like she said, experience has made you marketable. The experience she had abroad was transformational. She talked about the skills that she had and they were transferable. She was not telling about the tasks. She can tell you that she knows how to staple papers and print off things and work on Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. Those are tasks. She talked about the transformational things that she could do and how the things transferred from working abroad and how it would be beneficial to working in the States. So you all, I don't know about you, but I am just full. I told you, no lie, I got like 2 pages worth of notes over here. And I look forward to chatting with you all on our next interview. And I look forward to bringing our global career expert back to you all. I'll chat with you all soon.